Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jodielynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Okay, Jodielynn, we got to create some magic today.
As always.
Well, especially today, because we have one of those situations where the guest couldn't make it. So we have to kind of spin a topic right off the top of our heads with no notice.
Yeah.
Are you up for it?
I am always game.
You're always game. All right.
Let's go.
Well, then I'm going to open my mouth and see what topic comes out. Actually, I think I do have a topic in mind. We're in the midst here in the Northeast, and I think you are also where you are in Canada. We're in the midst of a seasonal transition that goes on this time of year, the fall transition. And a number of things go along with transitions like that. This time of year, economically, financially speaking, and so forth, this is when companies are setting their agendas for the new year. They're setting their plans. They're doing their new hiring. They're doing all that kind of thing. Politically, we're in the middle of a crazy political cycle here in the United States. When you look at things in terms of personal relationships are kind of getting a little bit tenser because we're starting to approach the holidays, and people are kind of getting both anticipatory about that, but there are also all the concerns that go along with it. There's a lot of transition that happens this time of year. So why don't we talk about transition today?
Sure. I love the idea.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever made transition a topic. Not that we ever talk about it. I mean, we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
It's just we never made a point to actually explore it. So I'm going to start it this way. I'm going to make the very, very obvious observation that without transition, we don't get change.
That's right.
It's pretty straightforward, right? The biggest challenge we always encounter when we're dealing with that kind of transformation, that kind of change, is dealing with that kind of change. Any kind of change, it upsets our routine, right?
Yeah.
And literally the fall transition is kind of symptomatic of that. It's kind of like a short-term little description of what it's like when you go through the minor traumas of change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's so interesting because we say that we want certain things in life in general, whatever. And then when the change is upon us, we're in this transition time, that's when we feel the most uncomfortable. And we almost forget about the things that we said that we wanted, and focus on how it's not happening fast enough, how it's not like the perfect picture you had in your mind, or that you're letting go of what was.
Yeah, well, we call that the era of instant gratification. We want everything right now.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen right now, then it's wrong.
Exactly. And if it doesn't happen exactly the way that I think in my mind, then it's wrong.
Really wrong. Yes. And how dare the universe deliver that kind of result to me?
Change. How dare you?
Yes, now there's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it does describe how it is. It's actually an emotional thing, really, more than anything else. The fact that we have trouble adapting to it and adjusting to it, the fact that we like our comfort zones. There is an emotional comfort to those comfort zones. That's why we call them comfort zones. And because there is that comfort there, that makes it more challenging to make the shift. So here's the question: how can we find a way to be emotionally good, to feel emotionally good about the change?
You want my opinion?
Go for it.
First thing that comes off the top of my head is the mindset of looking at everything as an opportunity. Whenever anything is happening, it's an opportunity for you to create what it is that you so desire to create. So changing it from, oh my gosh, this is change and this is scary, or I don't know what's going to happen, just even changing the mindset to this is an opportunity. And it's an opportunity as well to go deeper and to have a conscious conversation with yourself, to learn more about yourself. So I think that makes it easier if you're in this curiosity space and you're looking to just really be curious about, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And then that leads me to the last thing, really, is feeling all of those feelings. Like, I'm uncomfortable. And anytime we feel uncomfortable or angry or sad or anything, we're like, oh no, stay away. No, I can't feel bad. I need to feel good. I need to be high vibe. No, you need to understand what you're uncomfortable about. Is it something that's actually happening in your reality, or is it something that your brain has kind of taken off with and been like, oh, well, then this is going to happen, and 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 you're like 10 miles down the road from where you actually are in this moment, spinning like a spinning top.
I love that for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that it illustrates beautifully how all this happens inside our heads.
Totally.
I mean, none of this is playing. If anybody saw us and saw what we were doing, they would not see any of this.
No, absolutely not. They wouldn't even think of it. They're not even thinking about you. They're thinking about their own spinning top.
We're a bunch of people with spinning tops pretending everybody else is looking at our spinning tops.
Exactly. Yeah. And we just make it worse because the unknown is scary. And then our mind is, it's been previously programmed with all the other stuff that we've been through. So it's hard not to fall into that trap of like, oh no, now I'm unsafe. And then this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And none of that has to be true. None of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So once again, we are presented with unimpeachable evidence that we create our entire reality.
Absolutely.
Boy, there's a lot of responsibility with that.
There is. And I mean, maybe we should let the pressure off, on like an Instapot where you have the release valve.
Yeah.
Have a release valve with this conversation, that there is no perfect or right thing. Like what's right in this moment might not be right in a year from now. And, what's not right now could be right in a few months from now. I think we get stuck on like how it has to be perfect and then beat ourselves up when the reality that we see in front of us isn't perfect. Like, oh, I created that. Whack. Oh, I shouldn't have created that. I'm bad in some way. Like, I mean, the last few weeks for me, the last month has been crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know the whole story, but I know it up until a week ago, and it was pretty nutty.
Yeah, it's nuts. And if I was looking at, so for those of you that haven't been watching the shows and haven't been following up, like a highlight reel of the last month of my life, I had a miscarriage. Then I went to Texas and I got really, really sick while I was in Texas, which I haven't been sick in years. So that knocked me out. Then I came home and a semi truck tried to run me over. And then now I've been dealing with all of that stuff. But from the place of where we were just talking of perfection, like I could really beat myself up. Why did I create this? Like there's financial implications with getting into an accident and now my car and dealing with insurance. And then now there's legal implications. Like the cops called me last week and were like, hey, do you want to charge this guy? Why am I deciding instead of law enforcement? Like there's all of these things that are going on that I could be like, I created a shitstorm in my life and then beat myself up for said shitstorm. Or the way that I'm choosing to look at this is it's an opportunity. There's a message or a lesson in all of these things for me. And I can find the light because where there is dark, light also exists too. So I'm constantly looking from that perspective. How can this serve me? How can I learn from this? How can I grow as a person?
Which is wonderful. That's one of the things I love about you, because you're so good at just saying, okay, it's me. All right, what am I going to do to embrace this? Because this is up to me to embrace it. And you do. I just think it's fabulous. I try to emulate you on that kind of thing.
Thank you. I just don't know any other way to be. My friends say that to me all the time. Yeah. My old assistant used to be like, I don't met anybody as positive as you. Like there was one day we had somebody was doing construction in the bay next door to us. And one of our photos is like a family photo of all of the families that work with us.
Yeah.
And it fell off the wall and it broke, like the glass shattered into a million pieces. And the first thing I said was, how beautiful is that? The sun and the beautiful pieces of glass. And she's like, you're crazy. Like, how do you look at life like that? And I think it's really training. I have been trained my whole life to look at the positive. That's the way that my parents raised me is to look at the sunny side of things. And there always is. And also, that's my superpower. I have an ability to see multiple angles and multiple perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that we get stuck in our own perspective of like, this is what's happening. Like, let's just use the accident scenario. Like, this guy hit me and he hurt me, and now I'm having to deal with all of this stuff, and the cops are not doing their job, and the insurance company is, screwing me around and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And although that could be true, that is all factually true. However, I know that reality is more malleable than we realize. So, maybe the opportunity to go back and forth with insurance was an opportunity for me to ask for what I want and stand up for myself. And like the accident itself, like this semi-driver didn't even see me. So where in my life am I hiding and don't feel like I'm being seen? There's all of these other perspectives and opportunities to look at this from a different way here in this moment, if you allow yourself and get curious too.
Yeah, which is fabulous. By the way, we should clarify one point for people who don't know the story. No, she was not hit by a semi at 55 miles an hour.
No.
Thank goodness she wouldn't be here if that happened.
Yeah, that would be pretty detrimental. I was stopped at a red light, and then he proceeded to forget I was there and hit me like 6 times.
But he didn't even hit you at like 30 miles an hour. It was basically just trying to push your car out of the way because he didn't see it.
Exactly. He just kept hitting the gas and just hitting me and thinking, his tire was falling off or some crazy thing like that. Like, it's just.
I keep trying to imagine what his mindset must have been. He hits the gas and he doesn't go anywhere, so he hits the gas harder. He hits the gas harder, trying to figure out why the truck isn't moving.
Exactly. Like, you would think after the first or second time that it doesn't move, that something's wrong, and I should probably stop and look.
Yeah.
But I mean, I saw the shock on his face. He had no idea I was there. Which also, like, that I can see from his perspective of like, it was an accident. It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't malicious. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He wasn't, whatever, right? Like, it was a pure accident. And I get that. And I feel for that. And then, I feel the weight of the decision of charge or not charge. And I don't think it should be up to me, first and foremost. But also, when I take that, when I take all the information into account, I also look at things from his perspective of like, wow, this is really going to hurt him.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to hurt anybody, which is why it should never be, not never, but in this scenario, shouldn't be the victim's decision to charge or not charge. That's dumb, in my opinion. Like, I don't understand why I'm put in that position. But again, there's a perspective there. What can I learn from this? And how can I grow from this?
That raises the interesting question. I mean, first of all, kudos to you for having that perspective, because that's not your typical perspective. The average person who this happens to goes off the handle and they're looking for all the different ways to sue and all that other kind of stuff. And you're not doing that. You're looking at it completely different, partly because you really weren't hurt. I mean, your car was hurt pretty bad, but you weren't hurt. I mean,
now I am. So that has been looped into things.
Oh, you are. You had a lingering injury that popped up.
Oh, I have such bad whiplash. It's crazy.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm having to go to the chiropractor, and now I'm starting physio today. That's why I have to leave at 3:05 is to go for physio. And like, it snuck up on me after the accident. I was trying to be tough. This is the thing, right? This is an opportunity to get conscious about everything. Like, I'm like, I don't want to hurt this man more. And where I fall down in my own life is I try and put people above me, even strangers. So like, oh, I'm not that bad. I will just tough it out. And then I get to a point where I can't physically tough it out, or mentally or emotionally or whatever it is, in different scenarios. And then I have complete breakdown. And I know this about myself, that I will work to help somebody or to save somebody to my own detriment. And it's something that I have a hard time drawing a line and drawing a boundary and choosing me. Like, I shouldn't have to worry about this person in this scenario, and yet I still do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're inspiring some thought in me too. I mean, I know this is you framed it as something rightfully so that you're learning from, but I haven't told you this. I'm in the process of writing a novel. This
Ooh,
this kind of came up over the last week, and
cool.
I'm using AI to help me do it, but I'm laying the whole thing out and letting it write passages for me and so forth. And it's proving to be quite a fun project, because what inspired the novel was we talk about so many things here on the program, so many different experiences that people have where they grow from something. They have some sort of trauma. They have something that happened, something they went through as a child, whatever, and they grew out of it, and then they want to share with the world and so forth. And I have continued to be fascinated by that theme, as you know, because I keep mentioning it every time it keeps coming up, right? I keep saying it because I'm fascinated by it. Well, I decided I was going to try to write a novel that focused on all of these different kinds of themes and how people grow through them, but I was going to make it all fictional.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I started off by using some AI to do some research and to come up with some ideas. And one of the first things I asked the AI to do was to give me a list of 20 different personality. I don't think I called them disorders, but personality challenges that people have. And it gave me this list, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool list.
Mm-hmm.
What if I were to make a novel that addressed each one of those?
Ooh.
Well, how do you address each one of those? And the first thought that came to my mind is that I've been writing these short stories for promoting the Positivity Partner thing. And one of the short stories was about a guy who owns a coffee shop. And I thought to myself, what if the novel was about the patrons of the coffee shop, telling each one of their stories?
Yeah, I love that.
And have the patrons, a lot of them know each other and they interact with each other, and some of them love each other, some of them hate each other, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm doing with it. The novel's about 40% written already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk
And
about inspired thought.
so when you're telling me all this about how on the one hand you're feeling all this sympathy and you have this really cool perspective on what the truck driver was going through, and on the other hand you're dealing with your own challenges and limitations about how you tend to take care of other people before you take care of yourself, I thought, wow, that's exactly the kind of theme I'm trying to build into these different storylines.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. You're basically giving me a view that I can use. I mean, not your particular story, but the viewpoint of how do you wrestle with these kinds of things? Because of course, the other thing when you're writing a story, you can't tell a story the way, like we tell stories here on the show. But if you're writing a novel, you can't tell it. You have to do what they call showing it rather than telling it.
Yeah.
In other words, you have to actually lay out, here's the conversation. Joe said this and Bill said that, and blah, blah. You have to show people how the thing played out rather than describing it from a high level. And because that's not only what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to do it in a way that honors the kinds of things you and I are talking about here. Like you're talking about that particular challenge of your own. Okay. I have to take that challenge if I'm writing a chapter about that and turn it into a dialogue.
Yeah.
Where the challenge plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's way harder.
It is. It's a lot harder. It's fun though.
Yeah.
It's
I think
really
that's
fun.
amazing.
So that's why I'm like listening with my fanny glued to my seat to what you're saying.
I love that. It's so good. And I think that if we don't know what's driving us or how we're being driven, I'm not really sure why I'm like that. Probably if I was to like guess and like noodle into it more, it would be that there's like a deep-seated fear of not being good enough. And if I hold other people up, or I help people, I'm helpful, or I'm good, and I'm putting all of these in air quotes in my mind, then I will be good enough. And it's interesting when it plays out in this type of scenario, because I'm trying to prove that I'm good enough, in my own head,
right,
to a stranger, and to my own detriment.
Yeah.
And so I can see the pattern, but it's not that it's easy to like walk away from.
Yeah. Well, one of the original impetuses of this program was to talk law of attraction. Let's bring that in for a second. Do you think you attracted this series of events?
I think I attract everything in my life. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I would say normally I would say that the universe takes a spin on whatever's happening and whatever lesson that you need to see, and then spins it in its own direction, and then voila, scenario plays out. But this one was way more literal, because the day that I got hit by the semi, I said the words, I literally feel like I've been run over by a truck.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And then 3 hours later, I was.
I don't know if I told you, I had the same thing happen to me early in my relationship with Louise.
No.
Yeah.
You never told me that.
We had met this was in 1998. We had met in May, and in August, I'm sorry, 3 months later, in August, we had driven together to Rhode Island, where she had grown up, but we'd gone to the beach. And we spent the day at the beach, and then we were driving up to visit her father and her stepmother. And literally, I think it was our first road trip together. I had just bought a car. It wasn't a brand new car. It was used, but it was in really beautiful condition. It was my first time taking a long trip in it. And as we get in the car to drive up to her house, she says, how about if I drive, because I know the route? And I literally said, after a moment's hesitation, okay, just don't get into an accident. 15 minutes later, we're sitting on the side of the road with a totaled car.
Whoops.
Yeah. So I totally identify with that experience.
Whoops. And it's interesting when it happens that fast. It's interesting because I think that there's some things changing in the field or whatever. I can't really quantify it, but I feel like things are supercharged. So not only that, where I was like, I feel like I got run over by a truck, and then I literally got run over by a truck happened, but like other things where I'm like, we should say we're gonna sell one of our pumpkins for the pumpkin festival to carve the day of the pumpkin festival.
Okay.
Really amazing. So Nate's like, how much should we ask for? I'm like, $1 a pound. And he's like, there's no way. And then they came back and they're like, we'll pay you $1 a pound.
Whoa.
And I was like, ooh, and like different things like that, where I feel like the speed of the universe, and like something drops in and I'm like, that's going to happen. And something else drops in and I'm like, that's going to happen. So it's interesting in that perspective. And I keep trying to remind myself of like, this is a sign of how powerful you are.
Yeah.
And like, I clearly wasn't getting the message of like, you need to slow down, you need to relax, you need to take care of yourself,
right.
After everything that was happening.
Yep.
And even though I said it, it's interesting looking back, even though I said it, like, I feel like I've been run over by a truck. I was doing nothing at that point to take care of myself and move away from that feeling. I had just kind of like accepted it and been like, well, life's crazy and it's just crazy right now, and I just got to keep going. It never clicked for me until I actually got hit by the truck. Like, okay, you need to like sit the F down and relax and just take care of yourself, take care of your body.
Well, plus in law of attraction theory, when something happens that quickly, when you get that kind of fast action like that coming through, according to the theory, it means you're in a high vibe state. So that what's so interesting is you described the series of things that have happened to you, right? You had a miscarriage. That's a huge emotional event. You had getting sick in Texas. And then you had this thing with a semi hitting you. I mean, not hitting you so hard that you were going to be seriously injured in a hospital, but you had these three things all happening in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And they happened as you were putting stuff out there and getting an instant response on it. So despite these things happening, somehow you were in a high vibe state. And I got to ask, how the hell did you do that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I honestly don't have an answer for that at all. And maybe it's not, but the thing that pops in is maybe it's not high vibe. Maybe it's just like attracts like. So I was already in this state of I don't even know what to call it, overwhelm, frustration. I was like worn down and overworked and like all of these things. So maybe that was just what was matching my energy. So it was like, makes sense. Truck.
You think you were really receptive to each one of those events,
Yeah.
energetically speaking?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. There's this part of me too. There's this thought that's going around. It's gone viral a few different times on different social media platforms or whatever. But they're talking about, you know, how the law of attraction is like gaslighting, and the law of attraction is bullshit, and like whatever, right? You're teaching people that they're attracting bad things into their life, and I don't look at law of attraction from that stance. That I attract, I did something bad and therefore I had a miscarriage. No, I don't believe that, you know, it's that way. I mean, for me, and this is going to sound so bizarre, the miscarriage was, it was scary at the beginning because I thought I was having another ectopic.
Sure.
And then as soon as I realized I wasn't, it was liberating. I mean, still
talk about that too, because I think you're onto something here. Talk about why that's liberating.
It was liberating for me because I can see that there's progression. Like I had 3 ectopic pregnancies and then now a miscarriage. And the reason why I kept having ectopic pregnancies was because of my tube, or that's what they were saying. And I mean, the healthcare system, you know, even though I live in Canada and everybody thinks the socialist healthcare is amazing, it's not at all.
Well, amazing is a relative word.
Exactly, right? Like, you know, they gave up pretty easily on my case without doing a whole lot of investigation. They were just like, it's broken. Why? I don't know. I don't know. We just should cut it out. No, that's not okay with me. But what it was liberating, the miscarriage was liberating because for me, the way that I was perceiving this event is we were moving forward. It wasn't ectopic. It was just a miscarriage, which means it got to the right area.
Yeah.
And that means that whatever I've done, the work that I've been doing energetically and physically and emotionally around this, having a baby, it's working.
Yeah.
What we're doing, it's working. That's the evidence that it's working. It's not exactly what I wanted.
No.
Like, obviously, I didn't want to have a miscarriage. I'd rather have an actual baby.
Right.
But I mean, if I had to choose ectopic, miscarriage, you know, I would choose miscarriage. That's easier. So for me, I could very easily look at this from the stance of we're moving forward, where we've made some headway in this department, because things are hard when you can't see them. I mean, like you're trying to attract more wealth, or you're trying to attract a family or the person of your dreams, or like anything. And all of these things are unseen. And I think for me, it's been harder with my body because my body looks from the outside pretty darn healthy.
Sure.
I don't have a lot of ailments or things that are bothering me. I sleep like a baby. Like I'm not, maybe I could lose like 10 pounds, but I'm not overweight. Like I don't have these health problems that would be an indicator of why I'm having such a issue fertility wise. It's just, there's been these issues that nobody can explain. So I do all of these things, not knowing whether we're making headway or not, just having faith in faith that it feels good. And I'm going to continue to imagine in my own mind and put it out there into the universe that it is making headway, that we are moving forward, but it's completely unseen.
Right.
On the inside. There is no evidence, like no evidence whatsoever that anything had changed. And it's really funny because my mom would ask me all the time, well, do you know if like these fertility holistic treatments you're going through, like the acupuncture, if it's doing anything for you? Like you're spending a lot of money. I've been in acupuncture weekly since June.
Oh yeah, that'll add up.
I'm spending a lot of money in acupuncture right now, and on this fertility journey. And this isn't the only thing that I've done. We're doing the patches, the LifeWave patches, and all of these other things that I'm, you know, putting my energy, effort, and money towards. And my mom's always like, oh yeah, like is it doing anything? Like, I don't see it doing anything,
Mm.
So it's hard to like get the narrative out of there and just focus on like, it is working. It is working.
Yeah.
But that's why the miscarriage was so liberating for me,
Yeah.
was because I was like, we are on the right track. Something is happening. Something good is happening. We're moving in the direction. Now I have evidence of that thing.
I love that on a number of different levels, not the least of which, because of how positively you're going after it, I can come back to it with something that other people might consider to be negative, but I know you'll take to be positive, which is you just disproved that entire healthcare system that
Yeah.
said that your tube was worthless. Apparently, the tube is
100%.
worthless. It delivered the egg to the right place.
That's right. It's
Well,
not broken.
how
It's
about
not.
that? We just
Yeah.
disproved the entire medical industry.
And you know what? I have had opportunities to do this. Like, so for me, I'm an abundance teacher, and I teach mostly about like abundance in terms of money, or that's what I have done. And figuring out how to attract more abundance wholly into my life has been, obviously something that I've researched a lot and spent a lot of time understanding, and a lot of time back and forth with my mindset, my energy, all of these things. And I thought that journey was difficult. Because of society, because of things that I had learned previously, because of the industry I was in, all of these different things that I had to like reprogram and continue to reprogram to this day and move forward and learn about myself. But the fertility side of things, 10x anything I've ever done personal development wise, because you can't see it.
Yeah.
And because you constantly have these authority figures saying, nope, that's not it. And I remember my second ectopic pregnancy. I went in and I knew I was having an ectopic because it felt the same. And I went to the hospital and was bleeding and like all this stuff, whatever. And they admitted me and they're like, yeah, you're having an ectopic. And they said, it's in your left tube. And so first ectopic pregnancy, I lost my right tube. We just caught it too late. It ended up like imploding while we were in surgery, and they had to take the whole tube. So I've only got one left,
right,
the left one. And so they're like, it's in the tube. And I said, no, it's not.
Wow.
And the doctor literally was like, rolled his eyes and said, respectfully, you can't tell. And I said, I can. It's not. And he's like, you can't tell. Like, he fought me on it. You can't tell. You don't know. It doesn't feel any different. And that's the authority figures and the people who have the actual tools to see inside that are saying you're wrong. And then I advocated for myself to have another ultrasound. And when I had the other ultrasound, I convinced the ultrasound tech, even though they're not supposed to give me more information, show me what's going on. And it wasn't in my tube. It was attached to my ovary. So still not the right place.
Not the right place.
But not where they said it was.
And by the way, disproving what he was claiming.
Exactly.
He claimed to have the exact answer, and he was wrong.
He was wrong. So he
was demonstrably wrong, too. That's the most amazing part.
Yeah. So this fertility journey has been me, I guess, finding my own voice and learning to trust myself, which is very difficult when you have an entire establishment saying, no, that's not the answer. Something's wrong with you and we can't fix it. Nor will we even look into what the thing that's wrong is. Nope, you can't heal it on your own. Like, there's all of this noise around it that I've had to cut through and say, no, my body is magical and my body is designed to heal itself, and I can give it the tools energetically, emotionally, vibrationally, all of these ways to heal itself. And if I believe, then it will be true.
That's the hardest form of faith, though.
Totally.
I mean, it's a lot easier to have faith about something that you can't see when the result is innocuous or when the result is in some way indifferent to you.
Totally.
But when it is diametrically the opposite of what you are being authoritatively told is true, that's when it's really hard. That's the hardest.
Really hard. And then when you're attached to the outcome,
yeah.
I obviously want to have a family.
Right.
And like working on detaching from that, like in different ways, like you're taught in the law of attraction, like let it go. That has been really difficult. And I say all of this with a grain of salt, because it wasn't like, all of these things have happened and I was just like, all right, I believe in myself. Like there was layers to this. Like I can vividly remember last year, it wasn't quite this time, it was probably more December. And my doctor had finally called me and said, there's nothing more we can do for you. You're going to have to go through IVF. And when you go through all the tests before IVF, they're going to want to remove your other tube. So then you'll come back to that surgeon and she'll remove it and blah, blah, blah. And so I was sitting at this point of like, I have two roads. Like I have the road of I can believe them and I can cut the only other tube that I have out and go in that direction, which will be a huge financial thing and a huge thing physically, because IVF is physically taxing on the body.
Not the emotional tax.
That was another thing. Like I was entertaining it, and then, I realized, oh, you can still have another miscarriage. And I'm like, wow, like this, the last ectopic pregnancy, I feel like I want to say I barely made it through. I made it through, but it was the toughest one. Like I was in a really dark place. So I'm in this really dark place having an ectopic pregnancy. Just finished that. Then I get a call from the doctor saying like, your tube is messed. There's nothing we can do for you. Like IVF is your only option to have a family. Good luck to you.
Great time to hear that one. Yeah, that was
right?
reinforcing.
Right? So I was devastated, and I could see these two roads of like, go the direction that they're telling me is the only option, or take my own path. And my human design is all about carving my own path. So it's no,
this fits the path is what you're saying.
Exactly. This fits exactly why I'm here on this earth. But I remember the anxiety because I felt like this was a mountain that I didn't know how to climb. Like I didn't know what the next step was. I didn't know, how do you believe in something when this establishment is telling you it's over, and everybody in your life is telling you it's over? Like, how do you have this faith? And I was like teetering on this. Like, I want to go down this direction of like, I can go my own path and I can heal myself and we can have a beautiful family, and they're wrong. And I can go down this other path. But it felt like I was standing at the base of, Mount Everest. And this was going to be the toughest climb of my life. And I was like, I don't know how I do this like alone. And I don't mean it in that way, because I have a lot of people supporting me, including a wonderful husband. But it just felt like I was standing all by myself. And I remember me and my dad went to a horse auction. And we were coming back, and, he didn't realize I was so in my head and that I was thinking about all these things or whatever. And I just said, I started to cry, and he's like, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know how to have faith in this other path because I can't even see the next step. And I don't know what that step is going to look like. Like, I feel so unsure of what's coming next.
Sure.
And he just looked at me like it was the simplest thing in the world. And he's like, hey, Jode, you've been in this place before. He's like, when you've gone through other traumatic things in your life, did you know the next step in that moment? And I said, no. And he said, but the next steps were always revealed when you were ready. So the point is to be ready. And that's all you need to do. And it was like this weight lifted. And I was like, all right, I'm just waiting for whatever is next. Like, I don't need to know step 2 and 3 and 4 and 7 and 25 and whatever, how we get there, how we navigate this road. I just need to be open that the next steps will appear. And like literally not even a week, maybe a week later, we were on your show. And that's when I got introduced to LifeWave for the first time.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And that kicked off like the whole journey. Which is crazy.
And I love also how that story illustrates how beautifully you have this wonderful relationship with your father.
Yeah.
Who first of all, there aren't a lot of fathers who have the wherewithal to come up with that answer. That was a brilliant answer.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. He was meant to be my dad in this lifetime. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can tell. Great stuff. Wow. Oh. I love how we can just have no topic at all, and look what it turns into.
I know, 40
I
minutes
mean,
later.
you gotta be kidding me.
Oh, I love it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we started off talking about transitions, and we found ways to go into transitions in ways that I don't think either one of us thought of when we first.
No, I never even thought about like the connection to transition. I mean, I think that's where the anxiety comes from, is like, I don't know what's next, and I don't know what the next steps are. And that feels really unsafe because we're so taught, like, have a plan, get a good job, get, like all of these things are lined out for us. You're going to go to school for the next 12 years and it's going to look like this. And when the bell rings, you're going to go to lunch. And when the bell rings again, you're going to go back. But now you're an adult. And then you layer in law of attraction, where we're creating, and we can create infinite possibilities right now, here. So that adds to the anxiety of like, I don't know what's next. I don't know the next step to take.
I think there's another important piece here too, because we're still pulling for you to succeed, to break through all this, to get to the point where you have your first full successful pregnancy that goes to term and you have your first child and so forth. Yeah. And obviously that would be like the wonderful ending to the story. It's possible it doesn't play out that way.
Yeah.
It is possible it doesn't play out that way. And yet, even as I consider that, I realize all this stuff that you're going through is still serving you.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I have learned so much about myself, about my relationship with my husband, about my relationship with the world around me. Yeah. And you know what? So a part of the detaching process, when you're two, and I teach this in money, so this has been a hard lesson, and it's still not 1000% landed yet.
Yeah, well, it takes a while with these things. Even when we got it, it still takes a while.
Right?
Yeah.
With money, I talk about when you're so attached to it, it's like you're choking it, the thing, and you become like the needy girlfriend that nobody wants to be around because you seethe with this like neediness.
Right.
And when you're like that with money, money goes the opposite direction. It's like, no, bye. Relationships, same thing. Like, that's how I literally met Nate. I was like, I don't care about finding the man of my dreams. I just want to be happy. And I started to let that go and be happy. Literally 2 weeks later, Nate walked into my office, and that's history, right?
Absolutely.
So with having a kid, what dawned on me through over the last year, and like understanding that I need to stop seething. I need to stop being so attached to this outcome the way that I see it, and allow whatever amazing things the universe has planned for me play out. In that line of thinking, what came to me was, I didn't know how all of these miraculous things would play out in my life before they played out. And when I look back, I see exactly why they happened. And I'm so incredibly grateful. And I could never have imagined that. Like, it's beyond my wildest imagination that all of these things played out for me, for my greater good. And all of these things, came to me or in my life. And so that's where I've come to with kids too, is that if it's not meant to be, imagine what else is coming.
Yeah, right. That's true.
I can't imagine what else is coming. I have no idea what's coming next, but I know that it's going to be good. And I said this last week on our show, and I say it a lot. Like, I wouldn't have chosen poorly.
Yes, that's right. That was the theme last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the same with this. Like, I know that I was meant to be a mother, but maybe it's a mother in a different way. I don't know. But it's something great. Like, I am always on the precipice of something great. This is no different.
You used a great word too. And I'm not even sure you realized exactly how great it was when you said it, but it really caught my attention. The word you used was seething. Because I imagine when you said the word seething, the first thing I did is I kind of went inside and I asked myself, what does seething look like? You know, because like you said, when we get into that I'll call it a blocked state, when we get into that resistant state, we
Mhm.
start to seethe about it. This has got to happen. And
Yeah.
just the word itself, I'm seething with this thing. It just has to be. And if it doesn't, it's a disaster if it doesn't turn into whatever it is I'm trying to make it turn into. And
Mhm.
that's seething. I'm
Yeah.
just seething with this thing. When you think about that word and how that actually plays out, it's amazing we could attract anything in that state.
Well, yeah.
Seriously.
You think about when I think about like seething and what that does to like the possibilities,
Mm,
like it really locks everything down. Like you are choking out all air to
mm,
any other possibility. You're saying it must be this one way and it
right.
must look exactly like I have in my mind. And you're so fixated on it, like, clenched jaw, fists, like tight body, all of those things. You're literally seething because it has to be this way. And what
Mm,
you've literally done is you've said all the billion other possible ways that this could come to fruition, or all the billion possible things that could happen that would benefit me or that I would love that I can't even imagine. We've locked all those
yeah,
down.
the no to everything.
No to
I
everything.
don't know if we realize how much no we're saying with that.
Exactly.
We're saying
Yeah.
no to literally everything except for that
Everything.
one little thin sliver that we had in mind.
Exactly. And you're not even in that seething state. You're not even aligned to that thing that you
No,
think.
you're not. Otherwise, it would have shown up by now.
Exactly. So now you've locked out all other possibilities on how this thing could come to be or whatever could come into your life. And you're not a match to the one like freeway that you left open.
But what you are matched to is the one thing that would make you see even more.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you're matched to.
That's the only thing. So it makes sense why more of that would come,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
This is what's known as the 2x4 method of learning.
Yes. Keep hitting really hard. Yes. I mean, I have also had experiences like that where, like, I just needed, I mean, and maybe this last couple of weeks was the 2x4 moment for me,
Mm.
in a way to, like, in the way that I deal with myself under pressure, how I'm the
Possibly. I also have an alternative way of expressing it, though, because certainly because I don't think you were really seething through any of this.
No.
This was the seething mindset that we were discussing there.
Yeah.
But you weren't in the seething mindset. You were in a receptive mindset, not necessarily to what it was you were looking for specifically, but you were in a very receptive mindset because you kept finding ways to appreciate. You kept finding ways to appreciate, almost to your own detriment. That was the thing you were trying to work on without realizing it.
Mhm.
But when you're in that kind of receptive state, yeah, lots of things can happen. Not all the ones that you want. You basically outlined 3 very negative things that happened to you.
Mhm.
I'm willing to bet also there were a bunch of positive things that happened in there, because that's usually what goes on, right?
Yeah.
But we notice the 3 things that were really terrible.
Mhm.
And that's the basis for our stories, because they make much more interesting stories to talk about the 3 things that went wrong. If I tell you 3 things that went right, you say, "Oh, well, that's nice."
Nobody cares. They want the drama.
There's no drama in that, right?
You know what? Immediately when you said you were receptive and maybe not what you what you wanted, but it's interesting because what immediately dropped in was that what happens next is
Mm,
completely unwritten. Like
mm,
nobody knows, maybe God. Okay. But like outside of that, nobody knows what's going to happen next.
mhm.
So what if it was that I was receptive and that my body needed an opportunity to have a break? And at this busy time in my life, that's really the only way that I would slow down, if I had an excuse, if I had an opportunity to do that. And then once I slow down, my body can recover and take care of itself the way that it needs to. And maybe
Right.
perhaps we get pregnant right away.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
Who
well,
knows?
it certainly can evolve that way. There's no
Yeah.
reason why it can't. Yeah. And I love the openness of it. I think
Mhm.
the most fascinating piece for me, I mean, it's easy for me to say this because I'm not the one who's going through it. It's always easier to say this about what somebody else is going through.
Right.
When it's my own
Yeah.
stuff, it's like, oh shit, But when it's somebody else's stuff, it's like, oh well, this is kind of cool. But from my perspective, one of the really cool things that you're going through right now that you're kind of evolving to is like you said, you're learning how to take care of yourself more. You're learning you're learning that you don't have to put everybody else ahead of you, that you can put yourself first, that it's okay to do that. And all I can think is, wow, the next thing that she's going to attract is going to serve herself. And it's going to be a relatively new experience because she doesn't do that enough. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Almost no matter what it is. I mean, if it turns out to be a pregnancy, I'll be going, woohoo! But even if it's not that, it's going to be something cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's going to be something that serves you.
Yeah. I love that. I'm open to it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, like, there's a lot of really good things that come out of the drama or the crummy things. Like you said, I could list a dozen things right now from this experience that I've learned, that I'm noodling with. And like, I think our lives are the playground, and we're here to experience all of this stuff and get curious about how we feel about it, what we think about it. Like, literally, I am my best friend, and my mission in this life is to understand how my best friend, walks through this life.
Wow. I think about all the different times we human beings beat the crap out of ourselves, and here you are saying you're your best friend. Wow, that's fabulous.
That's something I learned early on in life. Like, if you're not your best friend, then who is?
Who
like,
is? Yeah.
You literally come into this world alone. Like, your parents might be there, but like, you take the journey through the cave, alone, and then you leave alone. So the person that you spend the most time with should be, or wouldn't it be wonderful if they were your best friend?
And as it turns out, you are.
Yeah.
And that's true.
I try to be. That doesn't mean I'm always nice to myself. Don't get me wrong.
That's learning how to be a good friend, but it doesn't change the fact that we are all our own best friends. Even if we don't treat ourselves that way, even if we beat the crap out of ourselves, we still are our own best friends. It just means we could do a lot better.
Yeah, we have an opportunity to grow.
We have a lot of opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Some of us have more opportunity than others.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that. I mean, because I know what that's like. I know what it's like to go onto a podcast and share that kind of stuff. It's liberating, but it's also not easy. Because you're kind of opening yourself. It's very vulnerable.
You make it easy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think about, wow, look what we did. We took a show that was nothing, and this is like one of the best ones we've done in the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I think so. This is a good show.
Shoot.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge of Rebecca. Thank you so much. She said, "So proud of you." I think that was
great.
So nice. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Rebecca was very supportive in her commentary while you were telling her your story there. Yeah. It was really something.
Yeah, and you know what? It only takes one person listening. You end the show all the time with thanking all of our guests, and it really has been a game changer for me, thinking about life in general in that way. Like, you might not know who you've impacted or how you've impacted their lives, but if you just impact one person, say one thing that, lights that spark that, makes somebody think a little bit differently and brightens their entire life and future, like, that's a ripple effect.
It really is. It really is. Well, the other thing I always finish a show with is the thank you. And so I'm going to do that with you today. For all that you just shared, for all that you shared, not just on this episode, but all the episode, to all the different people that you don't even know about who are hearing that. And that, there's at least one person, probably a bunch of people out there who need to hear that for whatever reason. And they're going to take it in some way, and they're going to turn it into something useful in their own lives. And that's a really cool thing. So on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing. Because, that was a wonderful story that you shared. Really, really good.
Thank you, Walt.
Yeah. That was really special. And thank you to those of you in the live stream. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.